We live in interesting times for the headlines. A senior U.S. diplomat directly implicated President Trump in a scheme to force Ukraine to probe a political rival. China warns it's ready to resolutely fight back after the U.S. passes legislation supporting the pro-democracy movement in Hong Kong. A wall of fire sweeps through a field in South Australia as infernos rage all over the country. And to Tokyo, where the autumn season starts to set in, EBC correspondent Tyra Lu will show us. I'm Alma Angeles, wherever you're watching from around the world. Thank you very much for joining us, and now to the news. A senior U.S. diplomat directly implicated President Trump in a scheme to force Ukraine to probe a political rival. Gordon Sondland, the ambassador to the European Union, told lawmakers he followed the president's orders in seeking a quid pro quo deal for Ukraine to investigate Democrat Joe Biden in exchange for a White House summit. Let's listen in.
Mr. Giuliani's requests were a quid pro quo for arranging a White House visit for President Zelensky. Mr. Giuliani demanded that Ukraine make a public statement announcing the investigations of the 2016 election, DNC server, and Burisma. Mr. Giuliani was expressing the desires of the President of the United States. He would greatly appreciate it.
He also said everyone was in the loop about President Trump's push for Ukraine to announce investigations into a Ukraine gas company and the 2016 U.S. election.
On Sunday. He would greatly appreciate a call prior to Sunday so that he can put out some media about a friendly and productive call, no details, prior to Ukraine election on Sunday. Chief of Staff Mulvaney responded, "I asked the NSC to set it up for tomorrow." Everyone was in the loop. It was no secret. Everyone was informed via email on July 19th, days before the presidential call. We did not want to work with Mr. Giuliani.
While he confirmed the linkage between the investigations and a White House meeting between Ukraine, President Zelensky and U.S. President Trump, he would not attest to allegations that President Trump froze $391 million in aid as well to Ukraine to add pressure on Ukraine.
We did not want to work with Mr. Giuliani. Simply put, we were playing the hand we were dealt. We all understood that if we refused to work with Mr. Giuliani, we would lose a very important opportunity to cement relations between the United States and Ukraine. So we followed the president's orders.
And then, of course, on July 25th, although you were not privy to the call, another condition was added, that being the investigation of the Bidens.
I was not privy to the call, and I did not know that the condition of investigating the Bidens was a condition.
The President relayed to you that there was no quid pro quo, but nevertheless, unless Zelensky went to the mic and announced these investigations, there would be a stalemate over the aid. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And that was an accurate reflection of your discussion with the President?
I finally called the President, I believe it was on the 9th of September. I can't find the records, and they won't provide them to me. But I believe I just asked him an open-ended question, Mr. Chairman. What do you want from Ukraine? I keep hearing all these different ideas and theories and this and that. What do you want? And it was a very short, abrupt conversation. He was not in a good mood. And he just said, I want nothing. I want nothing. I want no quid pro quo. Tell Zelensky to do the right thing. President Trump never told me directly that the aid was conditioned on the meetings. The only thing we got directly from Giuliani was that the Burisma and 2016 elections were conditioned on the White House meeting.
Now, President Trump has been denying allegations that he held up nearly $400 million in badly needed military aid to Ukraine until Kiev promised to investigate Biden, one of President's leading 2020 presidential rivals. Now, during a tour of an Apple manufacturing plant in Austin, Texas, U.S. President Donald Trump said the whistleblower whose complaint set in motion the impeachment inquiry is a political operative. Take a look.
And now with their big star witness, this was going to be their star witness. Now, just so you know, I don't know him very well. He's a guy that got put there. He wasn't even on my side. He came over to me. I didn't even know that. He came over to me after I defeated other people. I defeated them all. A whistleblower is not a whistleblower. It's a fake. And everybody knows, excuse me, everybody knows who the whistleblower is. And the whistleblower is a political operative. These gentlemen know it. He's a political operative.
Meanwhile, U.S. Democratic presidential candidates weighed in on the impeachment inquiry against President Trump during a debate in Atlanta. Senator Kamala Harris of California even said the testimony earlier of Gordon Sondland, the U.S. ambassador to the European Union, exposed a criminal enterprise engaged in by the president. Let's listen in.
Of course I will. And the obvious answer is to say first, read the Mueller report, all 442 pages of it that showed how the president tried to obstruct justice. And when Congress failed to act at that moment, it meant the president felt free to break the law again and again and again. And that's what's happened with Ukraine. We have to establish the principle, no one is above the law.
I have made it very clear that this is impeachable conduct, and I've called for an impeachment proceeding. I just believe our job as jurors is to look at each count and make a decision. But let me make very clear that what this impeachment proceeding about is really our democracy at stake.
Sadly, we have a president who is not only a pathological liar, he is likely the most corrupt president in the modern history of America. But we cannot simply be consumed by Donald Trump. Because if we are, you know what? We're going to lose the election.
Well, the constitutional process of impeachment should be beyond politics, and it is not a part of the campaign. But the president's conduct is. The impeachable conduct that we have seen in the abuse of power that we're learning more about in the investigations, but just to be clear, the president's already confessed to it on television.
Well, look, the next president of the United States is going to have to do two things. Defeat Donald Trump, that's number one. And number two, it's going to have to be able to go into states like Georgia and North Carolina and other places and get a Senate majority.
What we saw today is Ambassador Sondland, by his own words, told us that everyone was in the loop. That means it is a criminal enterprise engaged in by the president, from what we heard today, the vice president, the secretary of state, and the chief of staff.
National security, race, and climate. Each candidate will have...
To Hong Kong now, where exhausted protesters draped in gold and silver medical blankets continue to trickle out of the school in Hong Kong. Take a look. Now, police said they have arrested at least 40 students trying to break through a security cordon at the university campus on Monday. Polytechnic University has become the scene of some of the most intense confrontations between police and protesters in more than 5 months of unrest in the Chinese territory. Hong Kong has been rocked by protests sparked by a now withdrawn extradition bill since March. But the rallies have since evolved into a wider movement against the government, marked by violent clashes between protesters and the authorities. The turmoil also has already tipped Hong Kong's economy into recession, and the threat of a change in trade status with the United States brought fresh gloom. Now, China is warning it is ready to resolutely fight back after the United States passed legislation supporting the pro-democracy movement in Hong Kong, where hardline protesters are holding out for a fifth day at a besieged university. Take a look.
如果美方一意孤行，中方必将采取有力措施予以坚决反制，坚定维护国家的主权、安全和发展利益。
U.S. lawmakers on Wednesday overwhelmingly approved legislation that supports human rights and democracy in Hong Kong and also backed the territory's anti-China protesters, sending the measure opposed by Beijing to President Trump. The Hong Kong Human Rights and Democracy Act requires the president to annually review the city's favorable trade status and threatens to revoke it if the semi-autonomous territory's freedoms are quashed. They also passed legislation banning sales of tear gas, rubber bullets, and other equipment used by Hong Kong security forces in putting down the protests, which are now in their 6th month. The White House has not threatened to veto the measure, and President Trump is expected to sign it, according to a source familiar with the matter. Prince Andrew said he was canceling his public engagements as the outcry over his friendship with convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein showed no sign of abating. An increasing number of organizations and initiatives backed by Prince Andrew have said they were not renewing or would review their support because of the revelations. Prince Andrew, 59, said in an emailed statement he now recognized that his links to Epstein had become a major disruption to the royal family and the charities and organizations associated with it. He said, therefore, I have asked Her Majesty the Queen if I may step back from public duties for the foreseeable future, and she has given her permission. He also said, I continue to unequivocally regret my ill-judged association with Jeffrey Epstein. His suicide has left many unanswered questions, particularly for his victims, and I deeply sympathize with everyone who has been affected and wants some form of closure. I can only hope that in time they will be able to rebuild their lives. Of course, I'm willing to help any appropriate law enforcement agency with their investigations if required, he said. Queen Elizabeth II's second son has been under pressure since a television interview broadcast on Saturday in which he defended his links to the disgraced financier who was found dead in a New York prison in August. Let's take a look back.
One of Epstein's accusers, Virginia Roberts, has made allegations against you. She says she met you in 2001. She says she dined with you, danced with you at Tramp nightclub in London. She went on to have sex with you in a house in Belgravia belonging to Ghislaine Maxwell, your friend. Your response?
I have no recollection of ever meeting this lady. None whatsoever.
You don't remember meeting her?
No. The problem was the fact that once he had been convicted,
You stayed with him?
I stayed with him. And that's the bit that as it were, I kick myself for on a daily basis, because it was not something that was becoming of a member of the royal family. And we try and uphold the highest standards and practices, and I let the side down. Simple as that.
President Duterte sternly warned the courts against issuing a temporary restraining order on his latest directive to stop the use and importation of vaping devices and electronic cigarettes nationwide. In a speech delivered during the 80th anniversary of the Department of National Defense at Camp Aguinaldo in Quezon City, the president told the judiciary that he would not honor TROs that may be issued against his imposition of total ban on vaping. The president issued the warning just a day after he prohibited the use and importation of vaping devices all throughout the country. The president's ban order came following the first reported case of an illness related to vaping involving a 16-year-old girl from Central Visayas who allegedly complained of sudden onset of severe shortness of breath after using e-cigarettes for 6 months. E-cigarettes, which vaporize a solution that users inhale, became popular among Filipinos who think it was a healthier alternative to regular cigarettes. But the president maintained that he had to prohibit e-cigarettes in the country because vapors, including youth, do not realize the dangers of puffing it. He also reiterated his order to the state forces to arrest anyone who will defy his order.
This will wake you up. I will ban it. I will ban it, the use and the importation. I hope everybody is listening. Relay na lang. You know why? Because it is toxic. And the government has the power to issue measures to protect public health and public interest. You know, ang cigarette, the confirmed chemical there that's not good for humans, it's deadly, it's nicotine. It uses a habit forming, and it is toxic, and it kills people. And even the Surgeon General of the United States said that it will cause cancer. That's why it is there on the side of it will cause cancer. Now, itong vaping, sabi nila, is electronic. Don't give me that shit. Better stop it because I will order your arrest if you do it in a room. I am now ordering the law enforcement agencies to arrest anybody, ang tawag niyan, vaping in public. You contaminate people na hindi na pala panahong mamatay. You know why? Mabuti pa ang sigarilyo kasi the confirmed toxic thing that causes harm to people. Nakalagay dyan yung nicotine. Itong vaping, it contains nicotine and other chemicals that we do not know. It has not passed the FDA, Food and Drugs. And at this time, I said, smoking is dangerous. So vaping is also dangerous, and I am banning it. And if you're smoking now, you will be arrested.
A wall of fire sweeps through a field in South Australia as infernos rage all over the country. Take a look. The Australian Broadcasting Corporation captured this footage showing a sea of fire racing down a field at Beaufort, about 100 kilometers north of the city. Australia's Prime Minister denied his climate policies had caused unprecedented bushfires ravaging the country and insisted that his government was doing enough to tackle global warming. As dozens of new blazes scorched the countryside and the country's largest city was cloaked in hazardous smoke, Conservative leader Scott Morrison defended his climate record. He said Australia was doing our bit. Scientists, former fire chiefs, and residents touched by bushfires have all drawn the link between this season's more intense fires and climate change. Drought, unseasonably hot, dry, and windy conditions have fueled the unprecedented blazes, and scientists believe many of those factors are made worse by rising global temperatures. Eagle News will be right back.
On November 23, we are opening our doors to you for the ultimate ABC experience. Enjoy performances from your favorite OPM artists and meet our talented reporters, hosts, and DJs too. Experience hosting, reporting, camera handling, and more in our interactive booths. Visit exhibits of various products, innovative business solutions, and even job openings featured in our trade fair. For small and medium enterprises, learn tips and tricks at the Business Forum on entrepreneurship and technology. Also avail of fast and hassle-free services from our government agency partners such as the PSA, SSS, Pag-ibig, PhilHealth, and more. Admission is free, so bring the whole family, learn, dine, and experience the EBC Open House and Trade Fair. EBC Open House and Trade Fair is sponsored by LBC Express Incorporated, Becky's Ice Dream, Royal Care Marketing Services, Ayala Land International Sales Incorporated, Nature Spring, Just Payroll, Andox Lechon Manok, Tempra by Taisho Pharmaceuticals Philippines Incorporated, Go Hotels, Manila Airport Road, North EDSA, Cubao Ermita and Timog, Micaela, Bags, Shoes, Wallet and Umbrella, Style meets versatility, and PLDT Enterprise.
The trade dispute between China and the United States is seen as the biggest risk to the region's financial stability, that is according to the Asian Development Bank. The ADB earlier said its forecast for developing Asian economies like the Philippines has dimmed because of U.S.-China trade tensions, the sharp contraction in electronics, and weaker investments. The ADB said escalating trade tensions could affect as much as 77% of U.S. exports to China and 99.3% of China's exports to the U.S. by year-end. However, ADB chief economist Yasuyuki Sawada said the easing of monetary policies in advanced economies is helping keep financial conditions stable. He also said emerging East Asia's local currency bond market posted steady growth during the third quarter of 2019. The OECD trimmed its 2020 global economic growth forecast and said it did not see a strong rebound in 2021, owing to risks stemming from trade tensions. The Paris-based Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development now estimates that business activity around the world will expand by 2.9% next year, a decline of 0.1 percentage points from a previous forecast issued in September. In 2021, the OECD, which groups the world's wealthiest nations, sees global economic growth edging back up to 3.0% according to its November 2019 economic outlook. Let's listen in.
These are worrying times, and policymakers should worry. We project growth to stabilize at low levels, but our main fear is that it's here to stay. Because what's holding growth down is fundamental changes in the way our economies operate. And there are a lot of risks out here, so we worry it can get even worse. But there's a lot that governments can do, and it's about investment, it's about reviving international cooperation.
Airport experts in the United States, France, and Singapore have joined forces for the construction of the new Manila International Airport, or NMIA project in Bulacan Town in the province. Raul Eduardo Romulo, Chief Finance Officer and Treasury Head of San Miguel Holdings Corporation, said they tapped the Maynard, which built Atlanta Airport in the U.S., Jacobs, which designed Charles de Gaulle Airport in Paris, France, and the Group ADP that regulates Singapore's Changi Airport. SMC will build NMIA on a 2,500-hectare area in Bulacan Town, adjacent to Manila Bay. Romulo also said the NMIA will be the ultimate symbol of a modern and dynamic Philippines, which will give rise to a sustainable urban center. Romulo said experts are also helping the company to ensure that the villages around the NMIA will not be flooded. Based on a hydrology study, the topography and geography of Bulacan and its surrounding towns are prone to flooding. With the help of Maynard, Jacobs, and Group ADB, the broadening and widening of the Marilao-Maykawayan-Obando River system, the stream of Malolos, and the Tuliahan River in Valenzuela City will begin in early 2020. Home designs are evolving, and speaking of the future, our homes could soon look and operate much differently. Our Eagle News correspondent Arnie Aquino is at the BC Home and Garden Show. Arnie?
Futuristic homes are the way to go. The theme of this season's BC Home and Garden Show is just that. Futuristic designs and technology quickly making their way into today's homes. Stephanie Gatzionis, assistant show manager at the BC Home Show, tells us what's new this year at the BC Home and Garden Show.
We have quite a few new things this year. The one that's behind me is our feature home, the yurt. Most people have never even seen a yurt or heard of a yurt before, so we thought it'd be a really interesting way to show some alternative housing options for people.
What's the trend in homes moving toward? Efficiency.
The trend seems to be going towards smaller, more efficient. Nobody's looking at grand and extravagant. They're looking at more practical, like things that work. Yeah. Furniture that provides multi-purposes. I think people just kind of want that easiness about being home with their lifestyle.
She also lets us in on how new technology is making homes self-sufficient.
So, we have a few exhibitors that will showcase you things that will help make your home a bit more energy efficient. Different products that you can bring into your home that are energy efficient, and different kinds of apps that you can control everything from your phone so that you can monitor everything even when you're away, compared to just having somebody check in on your home. They're making it a little bit more self-sufficient. Right. Even our feature home this year, yurts are actually a very small footprint in terms of how they interact with the environment around them as well. They're very friendly towards that. There's not a lot of, things that they have to do in terms of the infrastructure and everything like that for the nature around them, which is great.
But why design a yurt? Award-winning interior designer Jamie Banfield tells us why yurts are so chic.
We're seeing this very big trend on glamping, right? So everybody's trying to get away. We're seeing everything on Instagram. Everyone's traveling, getting out there, and we're all, I think, interested in fun and different experiences. So the cool thing about a yurt like this is you got that kind of glamping, kind of that shabby chic kind of getaway. It could be a secondary home.
Jamie, why did you choose to design a yurt?
I think the typical thought of a yurt might be, a secondary space or a home or something that you set up, but then you can actually take down pretty quick. Whereas this is actually a house, so somebody can install it anywhere around the world. It's very cost-effective and really easy to install. But the really thing I love about it is there's no posts or anything like that we're trying to deal with for structure-wise. And when you walk into a yurt, it might look a little bit closed off, smaller on the inside, but it just opens up because of the elevation of the ceiling. And there's a massive skylight in the center, so it's a lot of bright light. So for us as a design team, it was really fun working on a space that's actually round, because most things we work with and we're taught in school is very square.
Apart from futuristic technology and bringing back the yurt, we also chatted with Eliza Sager, a founder of Leda Buds.
We do a subscription delivery service here in Vancouver, and we source locally grown flowers, and we have a sustainable model.
How did you start in the industry?
I lived in Hawaii for 6 years, and I started this, I loved flowers. I learned how to make traditional hakus and leis, and then as I started approaching and getting into the industry, I got this love for bouquets and flowers, and instead of having the kind of hoity-toity feel with flowers, I really just wanted them to be approachable, touchable, easy to access, and easy to get, but not like grocery store flowers. Some really nice, beautifully arranged flowers.
How is your business model sustainable?
We use no plastics. We have our stem wrap is made with a foam. It's a replacement for foam. It's actually a stem wrap. Our model's driven, not flown. So all of our flowers come in so some of the eucalyptus, for example, is from California, but for the most part we have it's all BC grown and Canada grown. Yeah. So driven, not flown. Most people don't realize that flowers are brought in from all over the world. That's a large carbon footprint, so we're trying to reduce that.
From the BC Home and Garden Show, my name is Arnie Aquino, always one with 25.
And the news continues here on Eagle News. We'll be right back. Stay tuned.
I am here at Gastown, which is a National Historic Site in Vancouver, British Columbia. Located in Vancouver's oldest neighborhood is the steam-powered clock, which is Gastown's most famous landmark. Make sure to tune in to Digital Nest every Tuesday and Thursday at 7:30 p.m., I am Lou Aquino, EBC correspondent, and I am 1 with 25.
And we're still following the developments out of Australia. The fire danger was elevated across wider swaths of the southern area, with residents warned to avoid at-risk areas as smoke from bushfires choked Sydney and other major cities. Take a look. Devastating fires along the country's east coast have claimed 6 lives and destroyed more than 500 homes since mid-October. Climate change and unseasonably hot, dry conditions is fueling the unprecedented blazes. Now the fire danger has moved into states further south with a so-called code red, the highest possible fire risk in Victoria being declared in the state's northwest for the first time in a decade. Country Fire Authority Chief Steve Warrington told people living in rural areas to leave for the safety of cities. The fire danger was also elevated to severe in the island state of Tasmania off mainland's Australia's southeastern coast, where a total fire ban was declared. The Tasmania Fire Service said 2 bushfires in the state's northeast did not pose an immediate threat to residents. For the second time in 2 days, smoke from bushfires blanketed Sydney, Australia's biggest city, and home to more than 5 million people, sending air quality plummeting to hazardous levels. A dramatic dust storm has swept through the Australian town of Mildura, turning the sky a vivid orange. It comes as Australia battles unprecedented bushfires with large areas and central and eastern Victoria state breaking maximum temperature records for November. An online fundraiser for koalas injured in devastating bushfires topped $1 million Australian dollars on Thursday, making it Australia's biggest campaign on the GoFundMe platform this year. Take a look. A crowdfunding page set up by the Port Macquarie Koala Hospital to provide automatic water drinking stations for wild koalas soared past $1 million with donations from more than 20,000 people from countries including the United States, France, and England. GoFundMe said the wildlife charities help thirsty koalas devastated by recent fires drive, which had an initial goal of just 25,000 Australian dollars, got more donations than any other campaign in Australia this year and is the second biggest since the platform launched Down Under in 2016. With more than 1.3 million hectares of land scorched in the state, the fires have also destroyed large tracts of the tree-dwelling marsupials' habitat. A so-called koala ark would be built for recovering koalas, the hospital said, hoping they will eventually breed and be returned to the wild. The breathtaking reds, yellows, and purples of the Mesoamerican reef have been turning sickly white, leading researchers on a desperate hunt to understand and fight the mysterious disease killing the Caribbean's corals. Take a look. A Sumatran elephant was found decapitated with its tusks ripped off in an apparent poaching of the critically endangered subspecies, an Indonesian conservation official said. The rotting corpse of the 40-year-old male creature was discovered by a plantation worker on Monday in Riau province on Sumatra Island. Authorities said the mutilated elephant had likely been dead for almost a week, adding that they were looking for those responsible. Rampant deforestation has reduced the species' natural habitat and brought them into increasing conflict with humans, while their tusks are prized in the illegal wildlife trade. Last year, the corpse of an elephant was found with its tusks missing in Aceh province in an apparent poisoning case. Indonesia's Environment Ministry estimates there are fewer than 2,000 Sumatran elephants still in the wild. Legendary naturalist David Attenborough urged international action to tackle pollution as he received a prestigious award from Queen Elizabeth II, recognizing the role his Blue Planet series played in highlighting the issue. The 2019 Chatham House Prize was awarded in London to Attenborough and Julian Hector, head of BBC Studios' Natural History Unit, for the galvanizing impact of the Blue Planet 2 series on tackling ocean plastic pollution. The Queen said she was delighted to hand over the award to the 93-year-old broadcaster whose voice has for decades brought the natural world into homes across the world.
Documenting the natural world.
Your ability to communicate the beauty and vulnerability of our natural environment remains unequaled, as you and your team have engaged and enthused many people, young and old, to appreciate and preserve our world's oceans.
Cope better with modern life.
Attenborough earlier called out 2 or 3 unnamed big nations for their lack of urgency on climate change. Let's listen in.
Never has there been a greater need for international cooperation and international solutions. They won't be easy to win. Politicians have to look to the people who elect them, who will assume that they will be number one on the list. That cannot remain to be so. We are citizens of the world, and we must recognize that. And international cooperation, which is the subject of this great organization, is of paramount importance. The problems are just piling up. We can never do enough. We have still got a lot of people to convince in this world. There are at least two, if not 3, large nations in the world that still don't accept that we are ruining the world.
With nature, we can cope better with modern life.
To Tokyo now, where autumn season starts to set in. Here's Tyra Lu.
At this time of the year, as the temperature starts to drop in preparation for the cold season, Japan, among other countries, enjoy autumn. This is the time when leaves of plants and trees turn into an array of warm shades like yellow, red, orange, maroon, and brown, among others, creating a picturesque landscape of colors that you mostly see in paintings.
Today, we'll take you to a huge park here in Tokyo to see what autumn is like in Japan. This is Wakagusa Koen. A huge and spacious park here in Ome City, west of Tokyo.
Especially at this time of the year, locals love to take a walk, go jogging, hiking, or just walk their dogs in the long walking pathway of the park, where they can take in the beautiful views of the surroundings. The park has several nice and practical facilities like these drinking faucets and this toilet area that looks like a historical spot. It also has a huge play area for the kids, where families enjoy a picnic as well. It also has a basketball ground and even a pool area. One of the highlights of the place that all the more complemented the autumn season is this colorful dragon-themed rowing boat that catches any passerby's attention. Right here at Wakagusa Park in Ome City, Tokyo, Japan. This is Tyrannel Piliulu for Eagle News, and I am 1 with 25.
Thank you, Tyra. Sports News is up next.
Events happen around us all the time. In our community, in our country, around the world. Events that affect people, move communities, or simply inspire us. Interesting events that people need to know. In these interesting times, we continue to be a competent partner in delivering news about these events. Fast, accurate, balanced. Eagle News, because we live in interesting times.
Kawhi Leonard and Paul George combined for 42 points in their first game together as the Los Angeles Clippers pulled out a 107-104 overtime victory over the Boston Celtics on Wednesday. Take a look. The game marked the first time George and Leonard played together since both joined the Clippers in the offseason. Leonard, who scored 17 points off 7 of 20 shooting, was coming off a 3-game rest, and George, who missed the start of the season with a shoulder injury, was playing in his 4th game. Lou Williams scored a team-high 27 points, and Patrick Beverley grabbed a career-best 16 rebounds to go along with 14 points and 7 assists. Jamie Green also added 10 points as Los Angeles won its 3rd straight game. Jason Tatum led the Celtics with a season-high 30 points. Marcus Smart recorded 15 points and 8 assists. Brad Wanamaker added 14 points, and Kemba Walker had 13 points and 9 rebounds. Boston had their chances as Tatum missed a tying 3-point attempt with 2 seconds left, and Leonard blocked Walker's desperation 3-point attempt just before the buzzer in overtime. Tokyo 2020 organizers unveiled the $523 million venue for swimming, diving, and artistic swimming that will seat 15,000 fans for the Olympic and Paralympic Games next year. Now, construction is 90% complete at the 4-story aquatic center and is due to be finished on schedule by the end of February, according to officials. The main pool features a movable wall, allowing the 50-meter facility to be converted into 2 25-meter pools. The depth of the bottom can also be adjusted. The building cost 56.7 billion yen, but Tokyo hopes to make the most of the facility after the 2020 Games, aiming to attract 1 million users a year, 850,000 through swimming competitions, and another 150,000 casual users. Organizers also unveiled the Ariake Arena, a 37 billion yen site for Olympic volleyball and wheelchair basketball. Construction of the main venue, the 159 billion yen National Stadium, has been completed and will be unveiled in a gala opening on December 21st.
有明アリーナはですね、都が整備をしている施設で最も木の量を多く使っております。で、木を使うことでですね、日本のですね、なんですか、日本のその産業育成という面もありますし、あとは来ていただいた方に、日本らしさとかですね、木のぬくもりなども感じていただけるようにというようなことを考えています。
この端に寄った壁をですね、真ん中に移動しますと25メートルプールが2つできるということになりまして、そうしますと、長水路でも短水路でも、選手の方が同じ方向で泳げるということで、観客席から見た場合に選手の方がこう左右方向に必ず泳ぐことによって、スピード感がより迫力を持ってリアルに伝わってくると。
Gas tycoon Leonid Mikhelsen is normally seen inking deals and meeting President Vladimir Putin, but Russia's richest man is rubbing elbows with the cultural crowd as he showcases a new Moscow Arts Center. Take a look. The GES2 or GES2 venue in central Moscow, financed by Mikhelsen's VAC Foundation or VAC Foundation, is located in a century-old power plant that is being redesigned with great pomp by Italian architect Renzo Piano. The enormous space is set to house galleries, cafes, and art residencies, and it's to open its doors in September 2020. Mikhelsen told a press conference, many Russian billionaires run arts-related charities, make sizable contributions to Western cultural institutions, or support and purchase art for Russian museums.
Culture is a very complex matter. It has been always difficult to find the boundary between art and society, art and people, between art and provocation, art and protest, art and rebellion, art and action, art and performing art, theater, cinema, eventually even entertainment.
Italian luxury designer Stefano Ricci unveiled his fall-winter 2020-21 collection at the prestigious Scuola Grande di San Rocco in Venice, which boasts the biggest collection of paintings in the world by 16th century Italian master Tintoretto. Here's the report.
Having the luxury industry, especially like it's a high-end brand, the way to keep on performing and continue selling and also to save a lot of jobs is generated, of course, by the performance of the company. And we'd rather save all the job and burn some products than not look after those products to be burned and maybe lose jobs in our sector. This place was known to be an area where they were protecting and improving the art and the craftsmanship, which my family really close to. My family really investing in creating new jobs with the younger people. It's part of our heritage, and we are very keen into this.
Our EBC correspondent Hannah Sofia Tangihan takes us to one of the most famous places in Switzerland. It's a Swiss heritage site of national significance. It's also the place where the famous Gruyeres cheese is produced. Take a look.
Hello guys, welcome to Château de Gruyeres. Ready to see one of the finest heritage sites here in Switzerland? Let's check it out. Let me take you back to centuries ago. Let's visit an amazing castle, the Château de Gruyeres. Château de Gruyeres, on top of a hill of the famous village of Gruyeres in the canton of Fribourg, is a great testimony of several centuries of architecture, art and history. Do you imagine yourself living way back in the 13th, 15th or 18th century? Well, here's your chance. The castle was constructed in the 13th century. Initially owned by counts, it then became the property of bailiffs of Fribourg and then the Bovy and Bylands family. In 1938, the castle was made into a museum for the public to enjoy. Even until now, the castle still shines. Its well-conserved interior, imposing fortress and beautiful garden continue to mesmerize and attract locals and tourists. The castle remains a strong witness to the region's rich history. Plus, since the castle is in such a picturesque setting, no one can regret visiting it. That's the history of the Château de Gruyeres history. Till next time, I am Hannah Sophia Tangihan, EBC correspondent of Gstaad, Switzerland, and I am one with 25.
Thank you, Hannah. And that's the news for tonight. Join us online and here again tomorrow evening. From all of us here at Eagle News, I'm Alma Angeles, always one with 25. Good night.
On November